Welcome to the Exam Room Podcast, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hi, I'm the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. Thanks so very much for watching, downloading in more than 150 countries around the world, and making this one of the most consumed nutrition podcasts anywhere on the planet today. My guest today, second time on the show, second time this year, but I'm so glad that you are back, Dr. Joel Fuhrman. Thanks so much for being here, my friend.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and here we are in Cleveland at the National Health Association Conference, and I always get such a thrill coming to these conferences and doing everything face-to-face. Do you still get the, I mean, you've been in this space for so long, do you still get that kind of energy and just like good vibes from being around people who you know you're having a great impact on their life?
Absolutely. Keeping connected.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I
even came back this year because I have so many friends here too. I just want to see my old friends.
Yeah. You've been to Cleveland quite a few times, obviously. Like, how would you rate Cleveland in terms of just being a quote-unquote vegan town? Do you find it to be pretty vegan-friendly here?
No.
No. Okay. Asked and answered, and we'll leave it at that. I'm glad that you're here. The last time you were on the show, you and I had the opportunity to talk.
But by the way, I don't need a town to be vegan-friendly.
Oh, no. All right, let's talk about this.
It doesn't matter to me.
Let's talk about this.
It doesn't matter to me. I go to Whole Foods Market, or I buy my salad, my frozen blueberries, I bring food with me. It doesn't matter. I'm not looking to eat in restaurants, so I don't have to have a town be vegan friendly. You can always buy produce and frozen vegetables and fruits in any town you go into.
Absolutely.
Or a can of beans. I travel with a can opener too.
TSA doesn't give you a hard time about that?
No.
Nice.
Little can opener and you
Is that,
open a can.
yeah, so what I do is I check in at the hotel. I was debating this. Let's see how you weigh in on this. I was debating this with some of the other speakers yesterday. Whether you go to the grocery store before or after you check in at the hotel. I say you have to do it after because you have to assess how large the refrigerator is in the hotel room. Are you a before check-in or after check-in guy with the store?
Before. I always make sure I have a refrigerator in my room. Right. And I'm always traveling with food in my suitcase as well. And then when I go from the airport directly to the market to get my food. And the reason I do that is because I'm going to an event or I'm speaking, I'm going to be busy at night, and I know when I have to get back to the airport the next morning, I want to commute to the airport at night when there's no traffic, not commute to the airport in the morning with a lot of traffic on the road. So after my event, my speaking engagement, my filming, I go back I get a hotel close to the airport. So I have my food already in the advance. So I get an early morning flight, get to the next city, get out of the plane, go straight to the Whole Foods Market, get the salad bar, get the beans, get my fruit, get my day set up to work. I know I'm going to be working late into the evening, and I know, so I have it all structured to make it easy for myself.
Pro tip. That is pro traveling 101 with Dr. Joel Fuhrman.
And here, you don't want to be traveling during rush hour. You want to be the opposite direction. That's why I'm near the airport if I'm going to go for the next day early morning flight. I'm already close to the airport.
See, that's a step above me. I'm going to use that because usually, like, I book my hotels around a Whole Foods. It has to be within like a 10-minute drive of a Whole Food. That's really it. And then the airport to me is secondary. But I like where your head's at as far as like going against the traffic, close to the airport, so you can just get up and go the next day. That's a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. And I think it's also really important, going back to what it was we were talking about the last time you were here, is that you do prioritize your health and making sure that you have what I will call the appropriate food with you. Because it's so easy to fall into the trap of eating unhealthy garbage because that's all that's around us. Do you see that a lot with people who come to your retreats, patients who you've worked with over the years? It's like, how in the world do I keep it healthy?
Well, it's a good point, but there's no trap at all when you're not a food addict, because there's no temptation. I'm not tempted, or people who are long-term, let's say nutritarians, and this is their identity. Their identity is based on their health and maintaining their good health, and they're a good role model. So they see pizzas and they have no food around, they just won't eat them. They'll eat their apple, whatever they're taking with them, or they won't eat.
Right.
There's no compromise.
Right.
But with a person who's a food addict, they'll, in a subconscious level, without realizing it, they'll get to the airport with nothing in their bag.
It never ceases to amaze me, Dr. Fuhrman, that you are somebody who, again, has never struggled with their weight, but somehow understands the psyche of the overweight person so well. What you just said about not planning ahead, not packing food with you so that you could get that bagel at the airport is so true. That is something that I certainly said to myself back in the day, whether it's at the airport or anything else, always have that excuse at the ready. And I'm sure that that's a common theme with a lot of the people who you work with as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The people who don't succeed always have an excuse. Like, oh, I sprained my ankle. I hurt my arm. Well, if you can't exercise, then you should have cut your calories back. You don't just, there's always a reason that doesn't, you should have adjusted your diet accordingly. You don't just keep eating the same amount of food if you're not burning the calories now. Obviously there's no, I always say an excuse is no excuse. It's the primitive mind working to protect your connection that you don't, with these addictive, self-destructive behaviors. Right.
So how does one, here's a deep question for you if you're ready for it. How does one battle kind of like the brutal truth of dropping that victim mentality and knowing that really the difficult conversation is the one that you need to have in the mirror, and the compassion that you also have to have for yourself, knowing that, you really have to appreciate and love yourself, and other people have to love you in order for you to really get a hold of these food demons that you've been wrestling?
That's a very complicated question, requiring a complicated answer, but we can start to get into it here. It's that you can't separate the fibers of the cloth that have to do with loving yourself and having compassion and passion for other people. You can't just love yourself unless you have a legitimate reason to do so. And when you're an addict, a food addict, a cocaine addict, you have less connection with the outside world, less compassion and passion for doing good in the world, because the primitive brain gets overwhelmingly, predominantly consumed with meeting your desires for brain stimulation with concentrated calories, and I call it these calories that rush into the bloodstream rapidly. So the rush of the bloodstream rapidly I call the caloric rush. So foods that afford a large amount of calories in the bloodstream change the brain's desire for food, so now your caloric, the amount of calories you consume, doesn't satisfy you. You still want more, out over and above what a person would need for normal biological function. So you completely discombobulated, calories no longer become satisfying. You have to have the caloric rush plus an excessive amount of calories. So it's how fast the calories enter the bloodstream. That stimulates the brain, reduces neuroplasticity, and makes you become habituated to wanting more calories. And then when you live now, you start to live to eat. And the more you live, you're surviving, you're working, you're making money so you can go out and get fast food and calorically stimulating foods or brain stimulating food. But the rest of the world is more gray. The rest of the world is less important. Your addiction is more important. When a person says, well, I'd rather die if I had to eat like that. Just shoot me right now. Can't enjoy food anymore. Who wants, because it shows that how imbalanced their life is. Their life is all about food.
Right.
It shows what's missing in their life. So I start with a different place. It's not about how much they can love themselves or getting other people to love them, because that's how we're raised to think in this country. It's all about how many brownie points I can get, have people like me and get approval from me and look better, go to a better school, get some award, look pretty, something they want other people to like them. Yeah. So it's all about now that we have to practice the art of loving the outside world. It's not us. And how much we can appreciate the reality that's there, the aesthetic structure of the world itself and nature, the value and importance of other people as being just as important as ourselves. They're all equally important. It's not about me, it's about all of us together. We're all interconnected. And that when you care and have passion for people, they're interested in them, having the ability of having a brain that's not impeded by drugs or food stimulation, where you can have your maximum ability to have creative goodwill for the people you interact with. Then you become more passionate about your purpose in life and your ability to then feel at peace with yourself. And not, a way of loving yourself is feeling confident and with your own competency and your own purposes in life and your own passions in life. And when you have those passions and purpose and you're looking to have opportunities to interact with other people, so you have a meaningful opportunity to have a good effect on them, to show them goodwill or some care or some love, that's the way we healthfully build our own ego. It's internally generated self-esteem, as opposed to trying to generate self-esteem from having other people like us or approve of us. We can approve of ourselves better when this will hold up in a French court of justice in some way. You know what I mean? Where we really are doing something that benefits humanity, instead of destroy the world for the future of the children or the people in the world, or have no compassion for others or people of different religions, races, immigrants, whatever it is, they're not as important as you are. Their life and their insides and they're just as important as every other person, as we are. And so when you can feel that you have a legitimate reason to feel proud of yourself, then you want to be the best version of yourself, and then food becomes of a lesser importance. And yes, we need social connection. We need to be able to have compassion for others and ourselves simultaneously. We need to heal and repair from food addiction, but we have to see it in the context of this person's whole life, because it's hard to get out of food addiction if we're still looking for the approval of other people, because the whole world is food addicted, and all of America is food addicted, overweight, and looking to generate external sources of their self-esteem.
Yeah.
So you don't fit into that world when you're trying to now care for your health and eat right. So you're going to get the negative feedback of other people. You're going to get peer pressure to eat unhealthfully, and you're not going to stay long-term eating healthfully unless you develop more powerful self-esteem and you actually develop, you could say, more robust emotional health.
Right. I think it's hard to develop that self-esteem when you put on this mask that a lot of us have to. And essentially, all the world's a play, I believe, as Shakespeare once said. And you feel like you have to be this person in order to be accepted. But as you become that more authentic self, and you are embracing and you get that confidence that comes from being your authentic self, you're feeling better about yourself, you're eating more healthfully, that's when you can really move the needle in terms of feeling good about yourself, but then also helping others along the way too. And I think that really that's the thing that I love most about what it is that we do here on the show. And I'm sure you as a physician helping other people's, like there's no greater joy in life than helping somebody else shed that weight, shed that mask, and then live their best life, so to speak.
Right. It's why I became a doctor, because it's fun having a person never have headaches again.
Yeah.
When they have chronic headaches, you tell them, look, I can really save your life and the ability, you don't take drugs the rest of your life. You'll never have a headache again. This is what you have to do. When a person has psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis, lupus nephritis, we're talking about these diseases that can recover. And I learned that nutritional excellence is therapeutically powerful. In other words, let me say this, that to maximize a nutritional portfolio or a dietary portfolio that can maximally slow aging and extend human lifespan is also therapeutically effective when applied to certain disease states. And when people are suffering with chronic disease and they go to a doctor and all they get are drugs you have to take for the rest of your life, and this concept that diseases are genetic or permanent or the consequence of aging, and you can never get well from them. So people are given such a negative and hopeless prognosis for their conditions, and they're never told the option that they can make a complete recovery if they change their diet and if they do this nutritionally. And I always thought that, well, look, every person won't want this, because some people are so addicted and so indoctrinated into their food stuff. But there are so many people that would choose this route if somebody told them that there was a way they could get well and completely recover from their rheumatoid arthritis or from their psoriasis or from their eczema or from their chronic headache syndrome or from their lupus nephritis. Or people die of lupus. They get kidney transplants. And who told them that they could have gotten totally well if they could change the way they eat? Who gave them that option to at least make a choice? No choice, put them right through a kidney transplant. Yeah. I have a patient who was, she was a 16-year-old girl who was on the National Renal Transplant list waiting for a new kidney with her lupus and lupus nephritis. And she made a complete recovery, went from a creatinine of 4.2 to 0.8, which is, wow. Right. Completely cured your lupus. Off all drugs now, and you're well for the rest of your life, and you live a normal life. And she was headed for a kidney transplant. Once you do a kidney transplant, you're on immunosuppressive drugs the rest of your life, so your body doesn't reject the kidney. You're going to be on steroids, and it's never, and people die of lupus. There was one case where, again, a young girl, she was in the hospital in Boston. I won't name the name of the hospital. And the parents had heard about my work, read about my work, and she was actually deteriorating under medical care in this famous Boston hospital. And the parents wanted to take her out and bring her to come to see me and see if I could help her. And I said, yes, putting her under my care. I could wean. I'm not going to stop all her drugs. We can wean off slowly once she improves her nutrition sufficiently. It'll take some time, but we can possibly get her well. And then they put security guards, policemen, in front of her door. The parents were unable to take the child out of the hospital because the medical profession can say, for the benefit of this child, we can't let her parents take control because we need to treat her medically. And this happens very frequently. It's not like it's a strange situation. So the parents took it to court. And by the way, the child passed away in the hospital. She died in the hospital. But the parents took it to court. I'm saying that so people don't get too shocked at the end. And I presented all the cases of lupus I had presented that reversed their condition, and showed and how it works and why it works. And I showed the blood tests and the cases and the people actually testifying. The other lupus sufferers that got well testifying, and the judge ruled in our favor to be able to take the child out of the hospital under my care. And then the time they went to get her to bring her over to my to New Jersey, she had passed away in the hospital. Yeah.
Have you published any of these case studies? Forgive me if you have. I haven't seen them.
I published some of them in a series of case studies.
We'll link off to those down below in the show description and then the episode notes. I'm sure that's going to get a lot of people to open up. I can't imagine how infuriating that must have been for the parents. I can't even imagine that level of pain and the frustration. And I would imagine there was a great deal of that for you as the physician as well. Like, why aren't these other physicians listening right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I got into writing books about this, because I felt like, I know that this works, but I have to write. But the other doctors, they're making they're not understanding that this is a science-based system and how it works. And at least if they're giving me this degree of false attacks and false criticism, they should know really what I'm saying, what I stand for. Put it in a book, show the references, so at least when they're being critical or saying something, at least they know they're being critical of what's written in paper that I'm really saying, not something made up that you know what I mean? So it's like back then in the 20, 30 years ago, I wanted to make sure that I could spend at night doing a lot of writing and put down what I'm doing and the results, in book form.
Do you feel like if that patient were to have happened today, there would have been a different outcome? It wouldn't necessarily have been this great litigious battle?
No. There are security guards and law officers in front of, commonly when parents want to remove their child from medical care, so no, I don't think it may not have been different today.
That's tragic.
Yeah.
That's absolutely tragic. That's very tragic.
We know that, as one of the founding members of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine from, many years ago, there are thousands of physicians specializing in lifestyle medicine. And even in New York City, there are hospital medical offices that specialize in lifestyle medicine.
Sure.
So we do have much more acceptance. So I could be wrong, but, could be wrong. But I don't think that most doctors see the incredible power that nutrition has to reverse these chronic illnesses. Even lifestyle medicine physicians, even plant-based doctors, they don't know the protocol and the methodology to take a person with asthma and use lifestyle and nutrition to have their asthma clear up, and so it goes away completely, which requires some degree of, tweaking the program. Sure. Like, for example, it's important to get the people on inhalers with asthma, to get them off their beta agonists and rescue inhalers, which may mean which may need you to increase their inhaled steroids temporarily so they can get off the beta agonists, which inflame the lung and cause chronic inflammation. And then we can eat the diet and add maybe juicing to help bring the levels of phytochemicals up in their tissues and get them and fix their fatty acid profiles and fix the nutritional density of every cell so the immune system functions normally, because you're not just enhancing the nutritional density of their diet, they're also simultaneously losing weight as we increase the nutrient density of their diet. So we increase the nutrient concentration of the cells so the immune system doesn't hyperreact. And also we're talking about the xenobiotic substances, in other words, drugs and chemicals and pollution and food plastics and all types of that add to the toxins the body makes. So the lungs are chronically inflamed, become exude waste products. So now we have this person eating healthy, immune system being fixed, and we're going to slowly decrease the medications once they pass 3 or 4 months of eating right, let's say, to get their nutrient levels are up, and we're going to slowly reduce medication little by little to the point where they don't need as many inhaled steroids. So there's a tapering that occurs over many months. And then at the point where you stop all medications, if there's a mild flare-up, then they can maybe fast at that point to reduce the residual inflammation in anticipation of them being clear of asthma for the rest of their life. No longer to need inhalers, no longer to go into the emergency when they're emergency, they can't breathe. So we see people make complete recoveries from asthma, recover from hay fever and environmental allergies and cat allergies and sensitivity to mold. We're talking about improving a person's health so they're not so fragile and they have more solid immune protection.
There's somebody in my life right now close to me who the allergy, they just went to the allergist and they're allergic to mold, cats, dogs. Like, they live out in the country, so they're always, exposed to those kinds of things, and just an animal lover through and through. I'm going to play that clip for them.
Yeah, they don't see that there's very few see the connection between dietary excellence and allergic sensitivities and tolerance.
Right.
There is some thing that, so we're saying here that it gives the potential for the person to at least have the hope of making a complete recovery from diseases that you wouldn't necessarily consider a nutritionally related disease, talking about rheumatoid arthritis and mixed connective tissue disease and undifferentiated. We're talking about a whole of 100 different types of autoimmune conditions that are largely reversible with nutritional excellence.
What do you think a realistic expectation is for that? I mean, everybody wants to put that marker at complete reversal of certain things, whether it's allergies, lupus, another autoimmune condition, whatever the case may be. What do you say when somebody walks through your doors and says, well, what should your expectation be? 80% recovery? 100%? 100% of the time? What would you say a realistic expectation would be?
It depends on the serious nature of the disease, how advanced it is, how long they've been on medications. For example, obviously, MS, multiple sclerosis, traditionally reverses itself when it's the relapsing, remitting kind or the early stage kind. But once it gets into the kind that's more chronically, whether you have more scar tissue and brain lesions that are permanent, you're not going to see reversal. There's this the progressive type of MS that gets to a point where you get irreversible. And some diseases, obviously, you get joint destruction with rheumatoid arthritis, where you have certain bone on bone and cartilage loss and deformities that are not going to reverse themselves. Right. But if we caught that person early in their disease process, then we could have had a higher probability of creating a complete remission. So my experience is that in most cases, if we catch them early enough, I'm very confident that we can reverse them if there hasn't been that kind of advanced damage.
You see that recently, early catching something early, Alzheimer's research with Dean Ornish, which just came out, we're saying that, you catch it early and you can do amazing things through nutraceuticals, so to speak. Let's go ahead and open up the doctor's mailbag. I want to go back to food addiction, and we had a lot of nice comments and questions from the last time you were on the show. And let's start with somebody who was really struggling initially making these changes and why it might take the body a little bit to adapt, a little bit of time. This is from Be Kind, who writes, I'm glad that Dr. Fuhrman talks about feeling crappy when swapping out to this way of eating. I've been doing a whole food vegan diet now for about 3 to 4 weeks, and I just feel like yuck. That's what they say. So 3 to 4 weeks to get over the hurdle for this person. They're still kind of in the doldrums. How long do you think it could take as somebody kind of detoxes off of their old way of eating and gets pumped up with the whole food plant-based?
Well, keep in mind that most people take a week, not 3 or 4 weeks. Okay. They usually feel ill for the first week. And we're also usually cutting the salt out of their diet too. Because salt exacerbates autoimmune conditions and allergies, for example, and headaches. But of course, it's a leading cause of death, especially among causing, both accelerating the risk of both hemorrhagic stroke and ischemic or embolic stroke. But in any case, what I'm saying right now is that when you're coming off from a high salt diet and moving to a low salt diet, your kidney still thinks you're on a high salt diet, and that takes a month. Mm-hmm. So the kidney, you're taking in less salt, but the kidney is still overly removing salt, and you're not taking it in, and you're going to be hyponatremic, or your levels of sodium could be too low. What I'm saying right now, some people, when they drop their salt intake down, their body's still sweating out too much salt and urinating out too much salt. And when you do that, you don't just urinate out salt. You take out chloride and phosphorus and magnesium and potassium, so your electrolytes get too low, keeping them chronically fatigued.
Right.
And what exacerbates that, if people overly drink water, they don't need as much water now, but if they overly drink and are drinking the amount of fluid they required on the high salt junk food diet, like 8 to 10 glasses of water a day, and they're drinking 10 glasses of water a day on a low salt diet, and their body hasn't acclimated yet. Could take 4 to 6 weeks for the kidney to stop excreting electrolytes.
Right.
And now that over drinking, she could be electrolyte deficient, hyponatremic, and be chronically fatigued. So we can probably address that and fix it. A person should not feel detox for a whole month. However, as the cell's nutrient levels start to increase, it could happen between month 4-week and 12-week period where a person has what happens we call a secondary detox crisis. It means that the body got nutrients in now. It's actually getting healthier. It'll do some deeper cleaning in trying to do some repair it couldn't do before, and maybe you'll feel a little flu-like or a little fatigue or a little skin itchy or something or a little sore throat that could arise, when you're doing this a month. And that's good or a little headachy, and that's good to reflect that, because these mild symptoms of inflammation are expressions that are examples of the body excreting waste products. Mm-hmm. These are extraordinary means of the body removing waste through channels that it doesn't normally use. Skin, lungs, or an asthma attack is a way of excreting waste through the lung. Headaches, because people view, let's say, something like a headache, something to suppress with a drug, but the headache itself is right directed. It's toxins and being mobilized for removal. And if you start taking drugs to push it back in, you're going to develop chronic headaches now. Instead of getting sleep and eating right, and so we're talking about respecting the body's symptoms to see if they're right directed, or there's still something you're doing wrong that could be exacerbating this. It shouldn't be continuing the person feeling so rotten.
Could a person's size from where they're starting from also dictate how long this process takes? If they've got a lot of weight to lose, could that slow down the detox process?
Yes. And also there could be some more retention of metabolic and xenobiotic wastes. Xenobiotic waste means all types of waste, could be even drugs. And what happens is that the side effects of drugs are enhanced when people get healthier. As you lose weight, as you're eating healthier, you might now start to see you were taking this blood pressure medication, this diabetic medication, this headache medication, this pain medication. You're going to experience more side effects because your body's going to lose its tolerance for the waste products. And so the drugs work because they're poisons, because they're toxins. So the toxicity of the drug is, you could say, is part of the efficacy of the drug. It's working because it's toxic. So the drug becomes more concentrated, your body mass becomes lower, your body becomes more sensitized to toxins and put more effort into removing toxins, and you get more drug-related symptoms or side effects.
Let's grab a couple of more before we go here. Boom, 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 boom. Let's get a good one. Oh, here's a fun one. Lulu and Meow. I don't know where people come up with these names, but they're fun. Lulu and Meow. To paraphrase Carla from Cheers, I don't know why I bothered to eat this Mars bar. It's oily, it's mealy, it's chips, it's cake, etc. That's what I'm hooked on. I might as well put it straight to my hips. And I guess Lulu's question is, what happens when we eat that Mars bar? Does fat for some people tend to gravitate more toward the hips? I'm sure that you've heard that from patients as well.
Absolutely. You're genetically, you have areas of the body that are going to store fat more readily than others. And we're all going to have a little different body shapes and areas we store fat more. And in that individual, they store fat maybe on their hips more. Another person may store fat around their waist more readily. So yes, that might be genetically determined.
That's hysterical. All right, and finally, let's get some help for the couples out there. We were talking about this on the show recently with Ivy and Maxim from Fit Vegan, how to get healthy together. And Sarah here writes, my husband is a sugar junkie. I wish he could watch this video, but he doesn't have the attention span to sit through an hour of info. There might be some deeper problems here, Doc. But if he would ever stop watching Law and Order, he might just survive his food addiction. What can you say to somebody, Dr. Fuhrman, who really has the best interests of their partner at heart and is just like talking to a brick wall, just can't get him to budge? What advice could you give that person?
Well, it can be difficult. The first thing if you push too hard, the person goes back, pushes against you the other way. in the long term, they have to want it. And if they don't want it, it's not going to work. So you could ask them in two things. Number one, I'm not really pushing you to do this, but I'd like you to be able to support what I'm doing and understand it, to know me, why I'm doing it, and it would be helpful to me to feel that you've at least learned this information and then made a judgment for yourself, whether you want to do it or not, which is up to you. But the reason I want you to do that is because I love you so much, and I worry about you, or I want the best for you, and still, I'm not here to tell you what you have to do or what, it's really, you got to make these decisions, but because I love you so much, maybe it would be really helpful to me if you would learn a little more about it, and let me if I have your permission to share this with you, and to share my feelings with you, because my feelings about you are very strong, and that's what really gets me so excited about this and so concerned about you. So as long as you're honest and loving, and still with the reality that still it's their decision.
Absolutely.
They're individuals.
Absolutely.
But
you know what? We could also go right back to what it was we were talking about when we began this conversation, and that, enough with the excuses, right? It would be really easy to say, well, look, my husband, my wife, whomever isn't going to do this, so I'm not going to do it either. Even though it's something you desperately want to do, you should do for your health. It's really easy to say, forget it, because my partner's not doing it with me. But if you've got that backbone, that confidence to do it for yourself, I think a person who can succeed under those circumstances has a real good shot, Doc, of succeeding long term.
For sure. But that we're all separate individuals, and we have an opportunity, a blessing, to have better health and a happier life without living without fear of disease and without the tragedy of being medically prodded and probed and having a more tragic type of medically dependent life, living in hospitals and nursing homes and surgeries, and it's not really a great life to be sick, and there's no reason that it has to happen to you. So, the bottom line is, we can have a much better quality of life, much more peace and happiness and less fear, and if you live healthfully, it's really worth it.
You're a wise man with a lot of great things to say, and I know that if people hop on your website, drfuhrman.com, they can see the information for your upcoming retreat. So if somebody wants to come out there and work with you, what's going on at the retreat?
Yeah, it's not really upcoming because it's always open.
Always open.
Yeah.
All right.
So people come every month. People leave every month, they come in every month. And some people, we're trying to teach people the information to do this on their own at home. Books, videos, podcasts, all these things that we're doing to help people. But some people feel they need the extra help to be there, to learn it, and to learn and study with me, and to get their medications weaned off, or whatever, to really work under my care. So they come out and stay with me at my retreat in San Diego, which is really, as you know, I get a lot of satisfaction, and I love getting to know people, but we also have a really good feeling that we've impacted their life that will benefit them after they leave. And ultimately, we're trying to give them the tools they need to care for themselves when they go home, not just when they're there. Absolutely. And then sometimes it helps us for a person to come in for a few months, to change the way they see the world, to change the way they think, to change the way they eat, to learn the recipes, to show that they're not giving up pleasure in life. You're enhancing your pleasure in life. This food tastes great. And also, learning the right caloric window you should be under, because Americans are how could they say, they're habituated to eating 2,500 to 3,500 calories a day. They're over 3,000 calories a day. Primitive societies and long-lived societies and long-lived people eat probably half that many calories. So they're habituated to overeating. And a lot of people switch over to healthier diets, but they're still overeating, or they don't recognize that even a couple of servings of oil on their diet a week, or a couple of extra sodium sprinkled in the food, just prevents them from seeing the results. Their allergies don't go away, they don't drop the weight, they still have diabetes, or they're still pre-diabetic. Sometimes it's necessary for a person to go all the way to really see the miraculous results that could happen for them. And I often say, the money's in the last 5%. You know what that means?
Money's in the
last 5%.
Elaborate for us.
Well, I used to be a coach, and I train athletes, and they want to get, professional opportunities or make big salaries and be great in their field. And well, you're a great athlete. Yeah, you're good, but you can't just do this 95% effort and do all the technique 95 when not and do your technique. It has to be, it's the real money comes if you're willing to do that last 5% of fixing the technique and putting the effort in and putting extra time in, and you have to do everything to really get to that level of performance that you're capable of. So it's the same thing here. Here's the point. You're already doing it 90-95%. You already made all the effort, and you're not getting the benefits.
Right.
Why not just do the extra 5% and let the miraculous healing occur? And also, it's the dabbling and the cheating in that doing it 90% that keeps lighting the fire under your desire to want to not give up those foods or continue to eat that way. You don't see the progress. When you're away from those foods long enough, and you're doing it 100%, you stop desiring it. It just keeps making you want that more, not less. So we find that over the years, the decades of me doing this, because I used to, in my first book, Eat to Live, I called it the 90% rule, which means, sure, do this 100%, but if you can't, do it 90%. Or after the first 6 weeks you lost the weight, do it 90%. But so many people that doesn't work for. So many people, it just keeps, that extra 10% is what's creating their yo-yoing and their ability to stay with it long term. And as I've gotten older, I've seen that more people enhance their probability of staying with this long term when they jump in with 100% adherence and they change their identity. And my word I used is called a nutritarian. And I'm using that term because I feel that Whole Foods plant-based doesn't represent a diet, doesn't necessarily mean you're eating a healthy diet.
Right.
There's unhealthy versions of that you can do.
Right.
Right. So the nutritarian moniker gives me that I'm eating really healthy version of a whole food plant-based diet. And when you do that, sure, you can learn to make it taste great. We're not reducing the pleasure of eating, but then really it becomes that you're no longer tempted. You don't even desire things that the self-destructive foods people are taking in.
It's a beautiful thing. I love it. The difference between greatness and mediocrity, 5%.
Right. Exactly.
Go for it. Just go for it. Dr. Joel Fuhrman, thank you so much for your time. This has been a 5% and above, my friend. We're at 101 today. Thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you. Thanks for the great work you're doing too.